Welcome to the Flavor Fest Urban Leadership Podcast, where we talk to innovative artists, creative pastors, church planners, entrepreneurs, and people creating movements. Our goal is to inspire and equip you in ministry, music, and the marketplace. I'm your host, Tommy Urban D. Kyllonen. Yeah, what's good? Welcome, Flavor Fest family. I'm glad you're in the building. You're joining us today. This is episode number 5 for the Flavor Fest Urban Leadership Podcast. I'm super excited because today we got a guy with us that I've literally known for like 25 years. 25 years plus, actually. I was thinking about it. He's probably my oldest friend in Christian hip hop, and one of my oldest friends probably even in urban ministry. We wind all the way back to 1996 when I first became a youth pastor at Crossover Church. He actually later that year became a youth pastor at an inner city church down in Fort Myers. And so we were both rappers and urban youth pastors, and we were sharing notes. We're going to talk about that a little bit on here as well. But we then both got signed to labels, but we took different paths. We're going to talk about that too. And here's what I want to tell you, because I know tonight there's all kinds of people that are watching this. You got pastors, you got church planners, you got artists, you got people that maybe thinking about planning a church, people that run nonprofit organizations, business owners, entrepreneurs, you got movement creators, you got influencers, all kinds of people on here. Listen, let me encourage you, there's different seasons of your life, different seasons of ministry. God's placed different gifts and callings inside of us, but in different seasons, it's going to look different how that's played out. And that's really one of the themes of the podcast today, because we're going to walk a little bit through KJ's story and his life, Jonah Sorrentino, and how there's been different seasons of how God is using him. And even now, he's at a major transition in 2020, and it really kind of happened almost right in time. We're going to talk about that too. And so I'm super excited, man, to have my friend join me. I love sitting down talking to this guy. He's a funny storyteller. He's got a few stories for us. We're going to laugh a little bit as we sit together right here on the couch, but we did distance a little bit. We were on ends of the couch. But we had a great time in this conversation. And it was actually right after he did a concert. If you didn't see it yet, it's on our Flavor Fest YouTube channel. It was the quarantine concert with KJ-52 in Dayton. So let's head to the couch, to the ends of the couch tonight, and let's talk to KJ-52. What's up, everybody? So we're just hanging out here on the couch. You know, we got our distance right here with my man KJ-52. He's telling stories. This guy is a funny storyteller. We've been having a lot of good laughs here on the couch before we even got started here on the podcast. And in the background, we do have one of our DJs that's spinning, doing our Friday night after party. We just recorded the first part of the Flavor Fest quarantine concert series. I really don't know if there's going to be anything more to the series. It might just be you and Dayton that were crazy enough to come out. I don't know if anyone else. I mean, KB said he would do it, but then he hasn't called me back. I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
It's a first annual quarantine series, retirement, rehirement.
It might be a one-off.
Yeah.
So, but seriously, me and KJ,
it's gonna be a hard part of history.
We've known each other, man, for like 25 years.
It's longer.
It was 1993?
93.
93. You have that like super. Your memory is like a vault, bro.
Well, of things that I don't know where trivial. My keys are, but I can tell you what Tommy wore in 1993 on stage at Southeastern College as he was in the Latin choir. I could tell you verbatim what he was wearing.
What was I wearing?
You were wearing a pink shirt. I don't know. I think you were wearing a blue shirt. It was like just like an Oxford shirt, but you had on, and I tell this all the time, you had a polka dot tie.
And you love polka dots, don't you?
It wasn't that. It was just this college.
I've seen you recently wearing a polka dot shirt.
Well, to honor the man of God and the apostle, yes, I would have worn the polka dots. No, but I went there as like, you know, a low-key hip-hop kid that just got saved and trying to figure out faith and hip-hop and Jesus and, you know, honestly, even diversity, you know what I mean? Because I thought this college was like super-duper suburban, and then I'm just like sitting in there watching this happen, and then all of a sudden this Latin choir goes up. I'm like, all right, whatever. And then
singing in Spanish.
And he did his little rap.
Did my little rap.
He did a little rap.
Spanglish.
In Spanglish, but it was so odd because I'm like, he's dressed. in the choir outfit, but I knew you were trying to just have just a little bit of a nod, and that was enough that I was like, all right, my man likes Kwame in the New Beginning. All right. I never got to talk to you, but after that we went to the Commons. I'm still in high school. You would have been a sophomore. Were you a sophomore?
Yep.
So we're 2 years apart. We go to the Commons, and then I almost got arrested by security.
The old security guard.
Yeah.
But so that's the first time we met. And then
We didn't meet.
Well, we didn't meet.
I just remembered that moment.
But then we did meet after that.
Yeah.
And you started going to college there after I graduated.
Yes.
And I think you only did like a semester, and then you went right into ministry.
I dipped my toe in the pool. That's all I needed. That's it. A little splash on the face.
And so a lot of people may not know this about us, but we were both started out as youth pastors doing inner city youth ministry, trying to build the plane as we were flying it, figure it out, because there was like no resources.
There's no resources. There was no resources for teenagers. There was resources for kids ministry.
Yeah.
I was hired on to do kids ministry, like outreach kind of vibe, Bill Wilson.
Yeah, there was like Sidewalk Sunday School.
There's definitely stuff like that. But then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, while you're here, here's the youth group. So, like I had to make up my own everything. And so we would build off each other quite a bit.
I mean, like, KJ, you got any games?
Right, and then I'd be like, "Hey,
it's Wednesday. Tomorrow night is youth group.
How do you keep these kids from killing each other every night? Because you were busting kids in
from different neighborhoods.
My whole youth group was all from the 5 housing projects, so we were busting them in. So, yeah, man, you form alliances.
Yep. So we were in the trenches together, and so but then we're both rapping, and we're youth pastors in an urban context.
Yes.
Then on top of that, as we started to do more music, we started to get known a little bit more, and we both actually got signed right around the same time.
Yes. In fact, your label wouldn't sign me, so I had to go somewhere else.
Yeah, they signed Cross Movement.
Appreciate that.
They signed Cross Movement instead. Sorry, man.
It's all right.
But anyway, so we both had different journeys. So I ended up staying in youth ministry, and I still signed, and I traveled. I did a lot of one-offs.
Yes.
But you went full-time into music ministry. You felt like God was calling you to do that.
Yes.
And God bless your career, bro. You did amazing things. You were a trailblazer. And, I mean, you sold the most records for a solo artist in Christian hip-hop. Like, you had that record for a long time. And
it sounds weird to even say it's selling records.
Yes,
that sounds like this ancient time of.
It's all about the streams,
the hieroglyphics. It's how you're talking about ancient Egypt.
Yeah,
the pioneer days. But yeah, speaking of that thing, so my actual record deal came from someone seeing me at Crossover.
That's right, man. So talk about that, bro.
Yeah, so when I was being courted by Todd Collins from Goatee, he said, "Hey, I want to come see you live."
Shout out to TC.
He said, "Where can I come?" I said, "Well, I got 2 shows coming up. One's in Outreach. You should come see that." I said, "But the other one is at this hip hop church." He's like, "Hip hop church?" I'm like, "Yep, you just got to see it." So there, and Dear Slim, first time I ever performed it was at Crossover.
Yeah.
It was I said, "I'm never going to put it out." I said, "You know what? I'm going to try it." The reaction was so big that I'm like, "Well, okay, I'm sitting on something here." So it's been a lot of milestones, with Crossover, and even though we may have kind of diverged paths for about 20 years, we're kind of back where we both started.
Yeah, and that's funny. I mean, we always stayed connected. You came to Flavor
Absolutely.
Fest multiple times, and we would always call each other. And, of course, when I needed a good laugh, I would call KJ because he had a crazy story from the road or whatever. And, by the way, a lot of those stories he's written in some of his books that we'll talk about in a little bit as well. So you can peek into the crazy life of KJ-52 as well. But now, the last couple of years, you've been kind of, coming back to ministry stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I never stopped doing things in the church, even when I was traveling full time. I just felt like it was better to be poured into.
Yeah.
But I never, I would still speak in my youth group. I would still, I say not my youth group. I wasn't a youth pastor.
Yeah, but
I'm saying
church you were
at the
part
church
of.
I was at, I always made it a point to speak or share or, disciple or mentor or pour into when I could. And that never stopped. But, you just get known for what you mainly do. But in the last couple of years, went on staff as a teaching pastor. Then I was a communications pastor. But those were still while I was actively touring.
Yeah.
And then as of January, cashed in my chips, bought a jean jacket, bought some sneakers.
We'll talk about that,
that's
man.
foreshadowing.
We'll talk about that in a little bit too.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. But yeah, man, it's super cool to see that, you've taken a lot of stuff you've learned on the road.
Yes.
And now you're using it in the local church. A lot of the creativity.
Yes.
You as an artist, and a lot of times that's missing in the local church.
Yes.
And so you did that at Cape Christian, and now at the church that you're at now, you're in a full-time position.
Yeah, so Cape Christian, I came on as teaching pastor and to kind of help launch their college ministry. They gave me a lot of freedom to come and go. I wasn't like keeping office hours or anything like that. But as of about 2 years ago, I filled in as interim youth pastor for about 6 months. And then just to, set up the next youth pastor. And then was communications pastor, and then resigned back in May. I don't know how you resigned from a volunteer position, but I did.
Because you were looking for something that was full-time.
I love that church. Still have great relationships with that church. But I've also seen so many people leave poorly, you know what I mean? And so I was like, you know what? I want to be up front. I know I'm moving from this sort of like guest speaker role to I want to go full time, and they didn't have a position at the time, for me. So I was like, you know what? I want to do this with full integrity. And that was in May, and I went full time at Christian Life Fellowship, which is where I'm at now as of January 4th.
So I just want to say this about you, bro. You've always been rooted and grounded. You've had integrity. You've been honest. I've been around this industry a long time. When I say industry, music, and then ministry as well. And you've had longevity, I believe, and you've been married now over 2 decades as well.
Yeah.
Because you've been rooted, you've been grounded in your local church. You served. That kept you humble. That keeps us humble when we still have that connection. And you never forgot your roots.
Absolutely.
Even as big as you got when you were selling 100,000 records, per album. Records again, right? But so I just want to say that, man, so I admire that, because we both know there's so many guys that started around our time or even after us that they fell off. Some of them aren't even serving the Lord. They're not even going to church. They've been divorced once, twice. And, there's just a lot of, you've always stayed balanced through it. So let me ask you this, what are some tips for some leaders out there? How did you stay balanced and juggle all those things over the years?
Well, I think the key was for me to set boundaries and stick to the boundaries. So I made a policy a long time ago that I would never tour more than 2 weeks at a time. Mm-hmm. So there would be times where I'd take these, very extensive tours, and I'm literally flying from Oregon to go home for a half a day and then be right back on a 6 a.m. flight to go back to the tour. Wow. And, that it would have made more financial sense for me to just stay out for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time. Mm-hmm. But I just knew, I had seen a lot of what you shouldn't do. And so I said, you know what, if you set boundaries, if both, spouses know what the lines are, it's easier to know what the expectations should be.
Yeah.
And then I just made it a policy when I'm home, and the music industry is very it's like an ocean wave. It rises and then falls. So there would be times where I was home a lot.
Yeah. Certain times of the year too, it's seasonal.
Right. So you have to hustle when you can, and you got to ride it out when you can't. So, I don't want to say I always had it down or got it right. I just think that's what did it. But it's weird to look back. You know what the craziest thing was? Our relationship started long distance. I started dating her, then went to the college we were talking about.
Yeah.
So I look back and go, God was preparing us for how to make a relationship work with gaps of time where you're apart. So I think, he knew what was up. And, other things, I made a point that I never left my hometown because her family was there. My family was there. So building a support structure around my wife.
That's solid.
But the reality is why I've retired KJ-52, and part of why I've made this shift is that now my kids are getting, my oldest is 12. Mm-hmm. I knew now is the time to not be an absentee dad. We waited to have kids for a long time. Yeah. You know what I mean? So just little things.
That's good, man. Boundaries. Yeah, so leaders that are out there, man, boundaries are a big deal. Know what that is. Talk to your spouse about it. Talk through it. It's going to look different in every relationship. So don't always compare yourself or your spouse to somebody else's spouse. That's not fair. Everybody's kind of built and wired a little bit differently. So even for me, I've been pastoring the whole time. So I do travel quite a bit and speak, and was doing music more so. I still do it a little bit when I go out and speak. That's part of one of the tools in my tool belt. But I know what my boundaries are, even with what I'm trying to do at home. You're gonna learn that now too. Is you're still gonna go out, but you have responsibilities at home. But for me, like I would never leave. You really right now it's usually 5 days is the max, and I might only do that once or twice a year, and then most of my trips are just 2 days, 3 days. Sometimes it's one night even. So I try to I guess I base it many times on the amount of nights that I'm not sleeping in my bed, and I try to make that only be 2 or 3 nights a month maybe, and so that that kind of helps balance everything out. But that's good, man. So. It's interesting. So it was January 2020 when you stepped into full-time ministry. And so here we are. We're recording this on April the 10th.
Yeah.
And we're in the middle of this crisis that none of us have ever seen before, man. So I even say this to you, bro. Isn't that God's timing? Because if you would have been a full-time artist,
oh my gosh, I talk about this
you
all the
were
time.
just 6 months ago, you'd be in a totally different space right now, man. So look at God's providence in your life, bro.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny too. We joke about this in the office that within the first week of when I came on staff, we did a 16-day fast.
Yeah.
So hi, you're here. Nice to meet you. Now we're going to starve you.
Yep.
And then by 3 months later, oh yeah, now the world's in a total pandemic and we have to rethink everything. But the truth is even with the craziness, this wasn't that crazy.
Yeah.
For me to have a psycho schedule and to have the world fall out. My bottom has fallen out of my life several times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You've been in some economic crises.
You have no idea. I imagine trying to be a touring artist in 2007 during the recession. I have had thousands of dollars lost, over XYZ. So this sucks, but I'm still yeah, man, you can make it through what I made through. You can make it through anything. So a lot of it prepared me.
Yeah. So how have you guys been navigating this crisis? For some leaders out there, some pastors, church planners at your church, what's maybe some stuff you've been doing that you guys have even been learning in the last couple of weeks? Because we've all turned into we're digital churches now, like it or not.
Yeah, but see, the thing about that is that's nothing new to me. For me to be in front of a camera or to navigate a digital space or to program for what you see on a screen, this has been my life. So that's what's been interesting about it. So just recently I took on, I'm moving into creative director in addition to being hired on as Go Team director, which is volunteer coordination, which is also in addition to being an associate pastor, which is also in addition to being, speaking for the youth.
Welcome to ministry, bro.
Yeah,
you got to wear lots of hats.
But see, people say that. I'm I love that.
Yeah.
I love that my life for the last 20 years has been in front of so many different things.
Yeah.
So.
You're built for this, bro.
Yeah, so I noticed that I was able to coach people, little things. This week I put a sign up above the cameras that said, "Look here." Because the church had been so geared towards performing for the crowd. Most online experiences is you peering into what's happening in the room. Yeah. We've never played to the camera.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So me having years and years of experience of playing to the camera, I'm we focus here. I'm putting this above, little things like that, marking off parts on the stage. Being the creative director, we were going to have this big thing for Easter, 3 perspectives on the crucifixion. And they were these monologues in the crowd, from Barabbas and from, da-da-da-da. And they were going to stand up and do these. I'm what do we do now? Well, we take those, we make those voiceovers and we put them over footage. Mm-hmm. We don't get rid of the idea. We just retool the idea.
It. Yeah.
Exactly. So and just even coaching, those that are on the stage, you are now programming for a television show.
Yep.
You have to think television show. My worship team, I have to coach them and say, look, you have to once in a while look up at the camera. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You have to engage that crowd and tell them what to do. It's just on the other side of the lens. So, but then also going, when there's a need, you got to fill the need. I'm cracking up at Easter. I was doing the lower thirds. I've never done the lower thirds.
Yeah.
But we were working on a skeleton crew because of the coronavirus.
Yeah. And it's weird because some people, we just filmed a concert tonight.
Right.
And, so some of the team, they were excited to be here, man. Some of my media team was like, man,
absolutely not.
Can we come? And then there's others that are like, oh, I'm not coming out of the house right now.
I know. And
so, you have to respect people's sensitivity to it as well.
And so me being the Go team side, which is our volunteer, like I'm over all the volunteer teams. So how do I retool a bunch of volunteer teams when you can't get anybody together to volunteer for anything?
Yeah.
So thinking creatively on that aspect, you know what I mean? And even just keeping them, checking in on my people, checking in on my teams, building into my leaders. There's things that I've put into place now that we didn't have before. We have a Facebook group that we're all meeting there on this Facebook group. I'm doing, online video devotionals for them. But again, this is all stuff I've done. So it wasn't like there was no learning curve. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, that's good, man. Your church is blessed to have you in this season. I'm sure that they've been able to, navigate some things a little bit better with some of the experience you have. And Crossover has been doing really good through this so far. I mean, a church like ours is built for it. Our crowd is very tech savvy, and most people are engaged with us on social media already, and we already stream. And
we were only about 50% like that.
Yeah.
So I've been now having to
pull people.
But the beauty is they've responded. It would be different if it's like, we're still struggling to get people to learn how to use Facebook. It's not like that. So the beauty of it is we're going to actually come out of this with new skills, new ways to connect, new ways to teach, so it's been good.
Yeah, like I've been saying, I think we're thinking about the church now, not just on it's a Sunday thing or if we do Wednesday nights, but we're thinking about every day. People need content every day. Yes. What can we serve them with? How can we feed them, connect with them, keep them connected with each other? And so I think when we come out of this, we're going to be thinking a little bit more like that. It's not going to go back to normal.
No.
It's going to become a new normal. And none of us are exactly sure what that looks like. I've been listening to lots of leaders and podcasts and webinars. Everyone's kind of leaning in a little bit.
Right.
None of us have been here before. So it's interesting, man.
Yeah, small group are going to go through the roof.
Yeah.
That was actually a discussion we talked about. We were like, those that were already plugged in, we've noticed in our church are still doing great. Those that were on the fringes are actually the ones that are probably struggling a little bit. So when I say the fringes, they're the ones that maybe just come on Sunday. Yeah. They don't serve. They haven't been through a membership class. They haven't bothered
they're just an attender.
They're just an attender.
We all got lots of them.
Which that makes up probably the majority of your church. So so I think some of them are going to come out of this and realizing man, I probably should have been more connected, so that's a good thing. God shook that up. In my opinion, he shook that up.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, man, over the next couple of months. And by Flavor Fest this fall, we're going to be probably in a whole different place.
Yes.
And really looking forward to that. So I heard a rumor that Flavor Fest 2020 might be the last official KJ-52 performance.
It's a rumor because you made that up.
I made it up.
And you wanted that to be the angle.
It was me. It's an angle.
I've said
it's a promo angle.
And I said, whatever you want it to be, that's fine. Half the people out there.
So you agreeing to it?
Well, but here, listen. This is the sad thing about our internet age is people only hear what they want to hear.
Yeah, they're gonna forget anyways.
So the beauty is, I have people that go, "You retired? Why'd you retire?" I'm like, "No, I just retired KJ-52." What?
What? Why are you going to be at Flavor Fest? I thought you retired.
I thought you retired, man. You said you were never doing shows ever again in your whole entire life.
You lied.
I've never said this once. And the beauty is, I almost feel like, I hate to compare this to a Seinfeld episode, but there's a Seinfeld episode where George gets fired from the Yankees, and then he just shows up back to work like nothing happened, and he tries to make it. I feel like I could just show back up to work from a rap perspective, and nobody would
half the people would be like, "Oh yeah,
man.
Record.
Hey man, you're still doing music? That's cool." So
man, tell us about Victory Lap, the last album, and you have a book that accompanies it well, and you become an author now, bro.
Yeah, second
congratulations.
Book. KJ-52book.com if you want to copy.
I'd give you a hug and a pound right now, but we're not supposed to.
That's all right. You've given me plenty over the years.
Yeah,
he's a good hugger. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. He's a terrible hugger, actually. Never mind. We're tangenting. The point is, yes, I remember in high school when I ran track that. Those that would win, every once in a while, they would run what was called a victory lap. And it was this lap where the crowd would cheer for them. And, I never was great at track, but I was always envious of that, right? And someone had asked me, where are you at with your life right now? I was like, man, I've kind of accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish. I feel like everything right now feels like a victory lap. And I thought, okay, that's it. I want to finish strong in the sense of let's enjoy this moment together. It doesn't mean part of me was like, maybe I should just put the mic down and walk away. But I'm like, God's gifts are without repentance. And I still love the freestyle. I still love writing songs.
Yeah, man.
It just really is more the idea of going, you've known me as this name or this persona or this thing. Jonah is my real name. I just want you to know me as Jonah. Now, if you walk up to me and call me KJ, I'm not going to like rebuke you and run away. I haven't changed my social media. Like, it's all there. It's just more or less going like, when someone says, well, what do I call you? You know what? Call me Jonah.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it.
So there's going to be some Jonah music coming out.
Yeah.
Down the road.
Yeah. I'm actually doing a project right now on my Patreon, patreon.com/KJ-52.
Hit it up.
It's exclusive to the Patreon. It's called Faith Over Fear, and it's really just capturing these moments in the quarantine of what they were. So I just wrote a song called "My Kids Are Driving Me Nuts," and it's all based on real things that are happening in my house. I have another one to follow up. It's about the amount of damage they've caused in my house. So
the random question, man. How did you get so good at freestyling? Because a couple of years ago,
all right, that's another milestone.
We did this crazy thing here. Yeah, it was a milestone that we
still
did.
Hold it. We still
together
hold that
as
record.
well. So talk about that. The Guinness. We have a Guinness plaque on the wall here at Crossover. What church has a Guinness for freestyle
longest
record?
Team freestyle?
12 hours.
And they retired it.
2 minutes. 12
hours and 2 minutes. How did I get good at freestyle? I mean, I think there's definitely people that are better than me. I think it just came down to growing up here in Tampa, in Ybor City. My parents were artists, and so I grew up in a very creative world. But my dad, I would do acting class. I would do plays actually at the Cuban Club. So one of those things to get ready for the plays is they put us in improv. So I was doing improv classes at 5-6 years old.
Wow.
So I think that created a improvisational mind. I always had a penchant to remember lyrics for some reason. So freestyling is combining the calmness of improv, being able to be calm in a creative state, and then combining that with a rhyming dictionary. So over the years, you know, you just build up your rhyming dictionary. But, you know, we came up in the 90s where freestyling was like, it was a rite of passage. You know what I mean? Whether you were good at it or not, you were just expected to do it in some way, shape, or fashion. So then after that stopped being like the thing, I just hung on to it. But, you know, I could see a word and I have 5 words already that I can, you know, think of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it shows too. Like, you know, when I was doing shows more so, which now I just go speak somewhere and do a spoken word piece or maybe do one song. But when I used to do shows, like the freestyle part was the part that people would like pay attention to the most.
Right.
Because you can engage them. They would hold stuff up.
Right.
They would give you things to freestyle about. And so, but yeah, man, you always killed it on that, bro.
One more thing though, I have to say, to be honest with you, it coming up as a white guy, especially doing Christian rap, especially doing stuff in the projects, I was always getting tested and put on the spot. And I noticed that a pre-written rhyme never had the same
as a freestyle. You started going around and talking about what everybody was wearing and this and that, and everyone's laughing. They're engaged, like, "Oh, look at that white boy! Oh, yeah."
Were you there?
Yeah,
it's not like you were there. So that you're exactly right. So that's why I was like, it almost became like you call tools in the tool belt.
They give you a hood pass, bro.
Yeah, well, no, we just all we wanted was a bro nod. All we wanted was a nod. That's all I looked for. If I got the I was okay.
All right, so another random question. We're not going to go too much longer because he's got to drive back tonight. We're in the middle of the quarantine. He's scared he's going to get pulled over. I wrote him a letter.
No, I have a letter.
Oh, you got a letter?
Yeah,
Look
I'm
at
very
that.
essential.
I had a letter over there for you.
Oh, that's good.
Wrote it, signed
Extra letters.
Said from the CHH bishop. He's allowed to have passage on 75 South. He was doing a Christian concert.
It's good.
At Crossover. Anyways, man. So now that you're in ministry, because we like to joke around. If you guys that are listening, you're listening in on we joke around a lot with each other. And KJ's a lot of fun to talk to regularly. So what are some things that bother you about ministry culture, man? Talk to us about that a little bit, bro.
It's funny because it's so similar to the Christian hip hop world or the music industry in general, is that the tribalism, the arguments over methodology
and theology
and the competitiveness, the subtle competitive, attitude, the insecurity, just those things bother me. But specifically, I have some very specific problems.
Okay, come on, drop it, bro.
My biggest beef, and God has checked me on this, but I mean, like we came up in an era where we were harshly given a lot of pushback on appearance.
Yeah.
Right. So I can remember a time in my youth ministry and saying, I want to get my ear pierced. And my youth pastor was like, nope, can't do it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's funny because he goes, you can pierce your ear when you get your record deal. And he was saying this like, almost like you're never going to get a record deal.
Yeah. And
that's the first thing I did was pierce my ears when I got my record deal. But like those little things like, you can't do a rap on the church stage. You can only do it in the youth room.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it was just anytime you try to bring hip hop culture into the church at that time, there was so much pushback. There was so much deflating. There was so much like, go change your clothes. Don't wear those shoes. Don't, whether they said it or not, that's how you felt.
Yeah.
So for us can't wear your hat. So for us to push through that and essentially, go against the grain. Now that I see guys wearing gear that we would have been harshly criticized for, and they didn't have to pay any dues.
Nah, man.
They don't know the culture of the sneakers.
We paved the way.
Well, we didn't pave the way, but I'm just saying we took
those early lashes.
We took those things, not because we were trying to be pioneers of that thing. It's just
it was who we were.
Music and sneakers and streetwear was a culture. It was a history. People wore shoes.
Now it's all about the sneaker preachers. There's an Instagram, and all the young preachers are wearing Jordans and all kinds of different things. And I've always wore that since the 90s.
Right.
I've never worn shoes.
Now, I just went to a convention, for a church convention, and I looked around and I saw one jean jacket after another with sneakers and XYZ, and I just was tight. I was tight. Mainly at the white guys. I was only tight at the white guys. To be honest with you, I was only tight at the white guys because I was like, do you know how hard it was to dress like that back in the day? Yep. Like the amount of pushback I'd get. And I'm like, you didn't have to pay. You don't know nothing about the history of that brand that you're wearing or that shoe or why the Air Force One is the Air Force. Like I'm running all this. And I'm telling you, God checked me the first night. He said, you are becoming the same thing that judged you. And I had to go up the next day, and this is my silly way of repenting. I walked up to that same group that I was like secretly hating on, and I said, "Hey man, don't know you guys. I just want to tell you, sneaker game's on point." And it's so funny. They turned to look at me and they go, "Yeah man, I was like checking yours out. I didn't really want to say nothing." You know what I mean? Like I'm like we were like two dumb little kids on the playground.
Yeah.
And I was like, God forgive me for this callousness of my heart that thinks that I deserve anything. I don't deserve nothing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Anything we have are gifts of God. And the beauty is now we get to like see that next generation and it's just like hip hop. You know what I mean? You don't want to become the old head.
Yeah.
Get off my porch.
Well, I know a lot of people listen to this right now, the Flavor Fest podcast. Y'all got your sneaker game tight anyway. So
yes,
but
feel free to wear whatever you want to wear.
Do it, baby. I want to see your sneaker game at Flavor Fest.
But I will come and ask you if you know the history of Supreme before you. Never mind. Stop.
All right, so hey, we're gonna wrap up. Last question I got for you, man, is what's next? What's next now that music is still there?
Yes,
but it's winding down somewhat. Now you're in the church world. Where do you see yourself at in 5 years, 10 years from now? What do you think God is doing?
Well, I think the beauty of it is that the reality is what I'm in, these positions that I'm in, are actually preparing me for what I feel is lead pastor.
Yeah.
Wow. I hope.
Okay.
Pray that would be the next step. I knew that a lot more went into it than I thought, but now I'm realizing, I have so much better understanding of what it means.
Yeah.
And it's been beautiful to like come in on the ground level and do what I do and to support other people and lift their arms up and, where it's not about you, it's about God's purposes and God's kingdom. Once you've like paid your dues that way, like, it's the best way, so.
Yeah, it's dope to hear, man. Well, I know that there is a lot of artists that are listening to this right now too. Flavor Fest attracts a lot of artists. And listen, we've watched a lot of artists transition, eventually become pastors.
Yes.
And there's some of you guys that
rappers make good pastors.
You're going to plant churches. Some of you guys are going to take over dying churches and revitalize them. And so, look to some guys like this that have been there, that have done it. We're here to pour into you guys, encourage you guys, equip you guys. And there's a lot of there's so much need in the urban multi-ethnic context for people that get it to step up and lead. Yeah, and man. So we're praying for you guys out there. And so KJ, man, why don't you close up this podcast and pray for everybody that's listening today?
Absolutely. Father, thank you for those that are, taking a minute to sit at your feet and learn. Not that we have anything great to offer. You have so much to offer, God. We are essentially crooked sticks that you draw straight lines with. And I pray for every leader on every possible level, from that bivocational pastor to that volunteer that is just trying to do their best with 10 kids in their youth group, trying to piece it all together, to that pastor that's like on the verge of doing major things. God, you are the one that does the increase. Help us to be the one that makes that harvest real. In Jesus' name, amen.
Man, I love talking to that guy. I love hanging out with KJ. Sometimes I just call him if I want to laugh, if I want to hear a crazy story. Or sometimes I just go to his YouTube, or really his Instagram. He puts funny stuff on there all the time. Freestyle Fridays, says crazy stuff about his kids. During this quarantine, he was doing a lot of stuff with his beard. Then he cut it. I don't know, maybe by the time you're watching or listening to this, he grew it back again. I'm rooting for him to grow it back. But thank you for joining us. Hey, if you enjoyed the conversation today, the podcast, do me a favor, subscribe to it. Put a little review up. Let some other people know about it. Post about it. Help us get the word out. We're still a little bit new in this. This is episode 5. But our whole vision and mission with this is to empower leaders out there that are in music and ministry and in the marketplace. We want to see them get better at what they're doing. We want to equip them and give them new tools and new resources, because they're out there, but sometimes in the urban context, they're a little bit hard to find. Well, listen, next week, we're joined by a guy that is a serial entrepreneur. He started a company with his cellmate from prison, and they're also pastors at the same church. Last year, he gave over $250,000 to his church through the company that they started. Yeah. You want to meet this guy. You want to hear this guy. He's a rising voice in our movement, in our tribe, y'all. So here's a little clip of a conversation with my friend, Myron Pierce.
I've been a fan of the 100-page book or less concept because I have a short attention span.
What?
As a pastor and an entrepreneur, man, I'm always on the next thing.
Yep.
So I was having it was birthed out of conversations like these with pastors and leaders, especially inner city guys. And one thing the Lord hit me with, he's like, man, because I'm always ready to plant the next church. I'll be threatening my staff. I'm like, man, if one of y'all don't make it happen, I'm going to go make it happen. But like one of the things the Lord did is he said, man, you don't just have to be apostolic when it comes to planting churches. I want you to spend the next 5 to 10 years driving the apostolic wheel towards creating content for the next generation of urban pastors.
Yeah.
Because I'm tired of learning from people who don't look like me.
Yes.
And we need more content from people like us in the urban context that we can actually look to. And so that's why I started Side Hustle Pastor, the book. That's why I launched it, because I wanted to give simple, easy steps that you can do by reading a book that's only going to take you 45 minutes to read, so that you can go do it like that and build something that you can create culture around when it comes to your church, put food on the table, and fund your ministry.
I'm telling y'all, my man Myron is a beast. You don't want to miss next week's episode. He's going to kill it. He's going to share some stuff of what they're doing. And man, I'm learning from this dude. He's younger than me. I'm learning all kinds of stuff. He's like, oh man, you my big bro. I'm learning from you. I'm learning from him too. We're learning from each other. And that's what this podcast is all about. Let's learn from each other. Let's share. Let's build. And hey, speaking of that, like Flavor Fest, the leadership conference, it's coming up in October. Let me remind you one more time, put a plug in for that. October 22nd through 25th. It's not canceled. It's going down. Go to flavorfest.org. KJ-52 is going to be in the building. It might be his last official concert, as I shared. So anyways, like you don't want to miss Flavor Fest. So hey, love you guys, man. I appreciate y'all for listening. Yo, next Tuesday, we'll be back with my man Myron Pierce. Peace. Thanks for tuning into the Flavor Fest Urban Leadership Podcast. Stay connected with us on social media at UrbanD813 and at Flavor Fest. We'll talk to you guys next week. Peace and God bless.